When Amy Winehouse opened that letter, a 20,000-seat arena fell silent. The words inside shattered her heart. It was supposed to be just another concert. Another night of music, crowds, and the chaos that followed Amy Winehouse everywhere she went. But on this night, in this sold-out venue in London, something happened that no one could have predicted. A single piece of paper, yellowed with age, ink faded by time, would stop everything. The show. The music. Amy herself. What was written on that letter? And why did it have the power to break one of the most fearless voices in music? Stay with us, because what you're about to witness is more than a story about a singer. It's a story about love, loss, and the weight of words we never got to say. If you want to see how this unfolds, subscribe now, because the most heartbreaking part is just beginning. The Roundhouse in Camden was packed that night. Every seat filled, every standing spot claimed. The air was thick with anticipation, cigarette smoke, and the hum of thousands of voices waiting for her. Amy Winehouse. The girl from North London who sang like she had lived 100 lives. The woman whose voice could make you feel everything at once: joy, pain, regret, hope. Backstage, Amy sat in front of a mirror framed with harsh light bulbs, staring at her reflection. Her signature beehive was perfectly sculpted, her eyeliner sharp as a blade. But her hands were shaking. Not from nerves. Not from anything the tabloids would write about. From something deeper. Something she couldn't name. Her manager knocked on the door. 5 minutes, Amy. She nodded but didn't move. Her eyes drifted to the table beside her, cluttered with makeup, cigarettes, and a glass of water she hadn't touched. And then she saw it. A small envelope, cream-colored, worn at the edges. No stamp. No address. Just her name written in handwriting she recognized immediately. Her breath caught. She reached for it slowly, as if touching it might make it disappear. Her fingers traced the letters of her name. She knew that handwriting. She had seen it on birthday cards, on notes slipped into her school bag, on the back of a photograph she still kept hidden in a drawer at home. But she hadn't seen it in 15 years. Amy's hands trembled as she turned the envelope over. The seal was already broken, as if someone had opened it before and then carefully closed it again. She hesitated. Part of her wanted to throw it away, to pretend she never saw it. But another part, the part that still remembered what it felt like to be 17 and in love, couldn't resist. She pulled out the letter. The paper was thin, almost fragile. The ink had faded in places, but the words were still legible. And as her eyes moved across the first line, the world around her seemed to stop. Amy, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. Her heart dropped. She blinked, trying to focus, trying to understand. The letter continued. I wrote this years ago, hoping I'd never have to send it. But if you're holding this now, it means I didn't make it. And there are things I need you to know. Things I should have said when I had the chance. Amy's vision blurred. Tears welled up in her eyes before she even realized she was crying. She wiped them away quickly, smearing her eyeliner, but more tears came. The letter went on. I never told you how much those days meant to me. The afternoons in the park. The nights listening to records in your room. The way you sang, even back then, like you were pulling something out of the universe that no one else could reach. I knew you were going to be something extraordinary. I just wish I could have stayed long enough to see it. Amy's chest tightened. She could barely breathe. The memories flooded back, sitting on a bench by the canal, laughing until her stomach hurt, sharing headphones on the bus, the first time he told her she had a gift. He believed in her before anyone else did. Before the world knew her name. Before the fame, the chaos, the headlines. I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye. I'm sorry I didn't get to tell you that loving you was the best thing I ever did. And I'm sorry you'll have to carry this weight now. But Amy, please don't let this break you. Don't let grief steal your voice. The world needs to hear you. I need to hear you, even if it's from wherever I am now. Amy folded the letter carefully, her hands still shaking. She pressed it against her chest and closed her eyes. For a moment, she was 17 again, sitting in a cramped bedroom, dreaming about the future with someone who wouldn't be there to see it. A knock on the door startled her. "Amy, we need to go." "Now." She stood up slowly, tucking the letter into the pocket of her dress. She wiped her face one more time, took a deep breath, and walked toward the stage. The crowd erupted as the lights dimmed. The band started the opening chords of Rehab. The familiar rhythm pulsed through the speakers, and the audience sang along before Amy even appeared. But when she walked onto that stage, something was different. Her eyes were red. Her movements were slower, more deliberate. She gripped the microphone like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. She sang the first verse, but her voice cracked on the second line. The crowd didn't seem to notice, or maybe they thought it was part of the performance. But Amy knew. She felt it. The weight of the letter in her pocket was pulling her down, making it harder to breathe, harder to keep going. Halfway through the song, she stopped. The band kept playing for a moment, confused, before one by one they stopped too. The crowd fell silent. 20,000 people, all watching, all waiting. Amy stood there, staring out at the sea of faces. Her hand moved to her pocket. She pulled out the letter, holding it up slightly, as if showing it to someone who wasn't there. She started, her voice barely audible through the microphone. "I just found out that someone I loved, someone who believed in me before anyone else did, is gone." The silence deepened. You could hear people shifting in their seats, murmuring to each other, trying to understand what was happening. Amy's voice broke. "He wrote me this letter. Years ago. And I just read it tonight. Right before I came out here." She looked down at the paper in her hands, tears streaming down her face now, no longer trying to hide them. "He told me not to let grief steal my voice. He told me the world needs to hear me." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "But right now, I don't know if I can do this." Then, from somewhere in the crowd, a voice called out, "We're here with you, Amy." Another voice joined. Then another. And another. Within seconds, the entire arena was filled with voices, not singing, not chanting, just speaking. Telling her she wasn't alone. Telling her to take her time. Telling her they understood. Amy looked up, her tear-streaked face illuminated by the stage lights. She saw the faces in the front row, some of them crying too. She saw people holding each other. She saw signs that read, "We love you, Amy." And for the first time that night, she felt something other than pain. She felt connection. She turned to her band and nodded. They started playing again, but this time it wasn't Rehab. It was Love is a Losing Game. One of her most vulnerable, most raw songs. A song about heartbreak, about love that doesn't last, about the kind of pain that never fully goes away. As she sang, her voice was different. It wasn't perfect. It cracked in places, wavered in others. But it was real. More real than any polished studio recording could ever be. And the crowd felt it. They swayed, they cried, they held on to each other as if Amy's pain had become their own. When the song ended, there was no applause. Just silence. A respectful, shared silence that said more than any cheering ever could. Amy wiped her eyes and smiled, a small, broken smile. "Thank you," she whispered into the microphone. "Thank you for letting me feel this." She tucked the letter back into her pocket and walked off the stage. But the story didn't end there. Backstage, Amy sat alone in her dressing room, the letter still in her hand. She read it again, this time slowly, savoring every word. And as she did, something shifted inside her. The grief was still there, heavy and suffocating. But so was something else. A sense of purpose. A reminder of why she sang in the first place. Not for the fame. Not for the charts. But because music was the only language that could carry the weight of everything she felt. Her band members knocked softly before entering. They had seen her vulnerable before, but tonight was different. Tonight they saw someone who had been reminded of who she was before the world tried to tell her who to be. "You okay?" her guitarist asked, his voice gentle. Amy nodded, folding the letter carefully. "Yeah. I think I finally am." She looked at each of them, these people who had stood by her through everything. He told me not to let grief steal my voice. And I realized something tonight. I've been so afraid of feeling too much that I stopped feeling at all. But that's not who I am. That's not why I make music. Her drummer leaned against the wall. So what are you gonna do? Amy smiled, a real smile this time. I'm gonna feel everything. And I'm gonna let people hear it. In the weeks that followed, Amy carried that letter everywhere. She read it before every show. She read it on bad days when the world felt too heavy. She read it when she needed to remember that someone, somewhere, had believed in her before anyone else did. And her music changed. It became rawer, more honest, more vulnerable. She stopped trying to be perfect. She stopped trying to please everyone. She just sang. And in doing so, she connected with people in a way she never had before. The letter also changed how she approached her concerts. She started talking more to her audience, sharing pieces of herself she had always kept hidden. She told them about the people she had lost, the struggles she faced, the moments of doubt that kept her awake at night. And every time she did, the connection deepened. One night, a fan approached her after a show, tears streaming down their face. "My brother passed away last year," they said. "And tonight, when you talked about that letter, I felt like you were speaking directly to me. Like you understood." Amy hugged them tightly. "I do understand. And I'm so sorry." The fan pulled back, wiping their eyes. "Don't be sorry. Thank you. Thank you for showing us that it's okay to hurt. That it's okay to keep going anyway." Amy realized then that the letter had given her more than closure. It had given her a mission. To be honest. To be vulnerable. To remind people that pain doesn't make us weak. It makes us human. She started writing again with a new intensity. Songs poured out of her, each one a confession, a revelation, a piece of her heart laid bare. Some were about love. Some were about loss. Some were about the struggle of trying to be okay when the world expects you to fall apart. That letter became more than just a piece of paper. It became a symbol. A reminder that love doesn't end when someone leaves. That grief doesn't have to destroy us. That sometimes, the people who are no longer here are the ones who help us find our way forward. And every time Amy performed, she carried it with her. Not in her pocket anymore, but in her heart. A constant reminder that someone had believed in her when she was just a girl with a dream. And that belief, even from beyond, was enough to keep her going. 6 months after that night at the Roundhouse, Amy returned to the same venue. The promoters were nervous. The last time she had been there, she had stopped mid-show, cried in front of thousands, and walked off stage. But Amy insisted. She needed to go back. She needed to close that chapter properly. The venue was packed again. Maybe even more than before. Word had spread about what happened that night, and people wanted to witness whatever came next. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because they had their own letters, their own losses, their own reasons to believe in the power of vulnerability. Amy walked onto that stage with the same beehive, the same eyeliner, but a different energy. She stood at the microphone and looked out at the crowd. "Last time I was here," she began, her voice steady, "I broke down. I cried. I didn't know if I could keep going. But you didn't leave. You stayed. You reminded me why I do this." The crowd erupted in applause. Amy smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile. "Tonight I want to sing for everyone who's ever lost someone. For everyone who's carrying a letter they can't send. For everyone who's trying to figure out how to keep going when the weight feels too heavy." She nodded to her band, and they started playing. Not Rehab. Not Back to Black. A new song. One she had written in the weeks after reading the letter. It was called Words Unspoken, and it was the most honest thing she had ever created. The lyrics spoke of regret, of love that never got to finish its story, of the ache of knowing someone is gone but feeling them everywhere. And as she sang, the crowd swayed, held each other, cried together. It wasn't just Amy's pain anymore. It was everyone's. When the song ended, There was a moment of silence. Then, from the back of the venue, someone started clapping slowly. Then another person joined. And another. Until the entire arena was on its feet, applauding not just for the performance, but for the courage it took to create it. Amy wiped her eyes and laughed through her tears. "Thank you," she whispered into the microphone. "Thank you for letting me be human." That night became legendary. Not because of technical perfection or flawless vocals, but because it was real. It was proof that music isn't just about hitting the right notes. It's about connecting. It's about turning pain into something beautiful. It's about reminding people that they're not alone. The letter stayed with Amy for the rest of her life. She never showed it to anyone, never made it public, but its presence shaped everything she did. It reminded her that the people we love leave marks on us that never fade. And that those marks aren't scars. They're reminders that we were loved. That we mattered to someone. That our pain is valid, and so is our joy. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories about the moments that change us. And remember, the people we've loved never truly leave us. They live on in the music, in the memories, and in the courage we find to keep going. This story is a dramatized narrative inspired by true events. It is a work of fiction for entertainment purposes only.